Black CEO's mother insulted at VIP event. Moments later, he fires the entire staff in powerful response. It was just past 6:45 p.m. when a silver Bentley pulled up outside one of the most luxurious restaurants in the city, LeBlanc Manor. The lights from the entrance sparkled against the car's polished body like stars. The driver stepped out and gently opened the door. From inside, a woman slowly stepped out. She was in her early 60s, dressed in a simple but elegant black dress. A pearl necklace rested lightly around her neck. She wore modest heels, the kind that spoke of quiet grace more than showy style. Her name was Eleanor Carter. She had worked hard her entire life, first as a nurse, then raising her son on her own. Tonight wasn't just any night. It was her birthday, and this dinner was a gift from her son, who had reserved the best table in the house just for her. That table, the VIP one by the garden window, was supposed to be waiting. She took a deep breath before heading toward the entrance. Her posture was upright, calm, and full of quiet confidence. She had walked into many rooms like this before, places where people stared at her just for being there. But she had always carried herself with dignity. The moment she walked into LeBlanc Manor, she felt it. The glances, the way conversations dipped slightly. A few patrons, mostly older, white, and well-dressed, looked her way, then quickly turned back, whispering behind glasses of expensive wine. Eleanor kept walking, eyes steady, until she reached the front hostess stand. "Good evening," she said gently, smiling. "I have a reservation under the name Carter. It should be for the VIP table." The hostess, a young blonde woman, glanced at her, then looked down at the reservation book. Her fingers moved quickly over the list. Once, then twice. Then she looked up. "I'm sorry," the hostess said. "I don't see anything under that name. Are you sure it was for tonight?" Eleanor's smile didn't fade. She was used to moments like this. "Yes," she replied. "My son made the reservation, Damon Carter." There was a flicker of recognition in the hostess's eyes. But then a man walked over. Tall, sharply dressed, slicked back hair. He looked like he took himself too seriously. This was Gareth Simmons, the restaurant's general manager. "Is there a problem, Amber?" he asked, looking Eleanor up and down. "She says she has a VIP reservation, but I can't find it," the hostess said quickly. Gareth turned to Eleanor. "I'm terribly sorry, Miss Carter, but the VIP table is already taken tonight. We don't have anything under that name. Perhaps there was a mistake." Eleanor stayed calm. "There's no mistake. My son reserved the table for my birthday." Gareth glanced at the book again, too quickly to actually read anything, then smiled that fake, practiced kind of smile. "We do have a lovely table near the kitchen," he offered. "If you'd still like to stay." Before Eleanor could respond, the front doors opened again. A woman walked in, blonde, tall, glowing with money. Veronica Langley. Everyone seemed to recognize her. Whispers filled the room. Gareth's entire mood shifted. He practically rushed over to her. "Miss Langley, your favorite table is waiting," he said, all charm. Eleanor watched quietly as Gareth escorted her to the VIP table. The very one he said was already taken. She spoke up. "Excuse me, Mr. Simmons," she said. "Isn't that the same table you just said wasn't available?" Gareth turned, his expression tight. "Miss Langley is one of our regular patrons. Her table has been booked for weeks. But just now, you said it was taken. Not that it was reserved. You lied." The air in the room shifted. People were listening now. "Perhaps you misheard," Gareth said quickly, starting to walk away. "I didn't mishear anything," Eleanor replied firmly. Just then, a young black waiter walked by Daniel. He paused for a second. "I saw the reservation this morning," he said quietly. "It was there. For Carter, VIP table," Gareth snapped. "Return to your station, Daniel." Daniel hesitated, then walked away. Gareth turned back to Eleanor, dropping all politeness. "Look, that table is taken. You can take the one by the kitchen, or leave." Eleanor didn't shout. She didn't argue. She just stood tall. "I'll leave," she said calmly. "But my son will want to know how his mother was treated." And with that, she turned and walked out. She didn't cry. She didn't look back, but as she stepped outside into the night air, her hands trembled slightly. She took out her phone, dialed one number she knew by heart. It rang once, twice. "Mom?" a deep voice answered. "Damen," she said. "We need to talk about LeBlanc Manor." The line went quiet for a moment. Damen Carter wasn't the kind of man who got rattled easily. He had built his company from scratch, every deal, every decision, made with precision. But when his mother said his full name in that calm, steady voice, he knew something wasn't right. "What happened?" he asked, still staring out from the window of his penthouse office. Eleanor spoke gently, like she didn't want to worry him, but her voice carried the weight of the moment. "They told me my reservation wasn't there. Then gave it to someone else, a blonde woman who came in after me. The manager knew who I was, Damen. He just didn't care." For a few seconds, Damen said nothing. He turned away from the skyline, slowly walked to his desk, and sat down. His face stayed composed, but inside, a quiet fire had started to burn. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "I'm fine," she said. "I left before I lost my temper, but I thought you should know." He nodded to himself. "Thank you, Mom. Give me an hour." When the call ended, Damen placed his phone down slowly, like he was handling something fragile. His mother had never asked him for anything, never expected gifts, praise, or payback. She raised him alone, working long shifts at the hospital, and never once complained. This dinner was supposed to be a simple thank you, a quiet celebration. Instead, they humiliated her. He pressed a button on his desk intercom. "Lisa, I need you in my office. Now." Within minutes, the door opened, and Lisa Morgan stepped in, tablet in hand, already sensing something was off. She'd worked with Damen for over 10 years. She could read him better than most. "What's happened?" she asked. "They disrespected my mother," he said simply. "At LeBlanc Manor. Took her reservation, gave it to someone else. Told her. She must have gotten it wrong." Lisa's expression hardened. "Your name wasn't enough for them?" "They didn't know it was me," he said. "And that's exactly the point." LeBlanc Manor was a luxury spot known for its exclusivity, which often just meant catering to the same type of high society people. It was also one of the many businesses Damen had invested in silently. He owned 62% of it through a holding group? The staff didn't know that. Gareth Simmons, the manager, certainly didn't. "You still want to keep your stake quiet?" Lisa asked. "For now. I want to see how they treat someone they think doesn't matter." Damen opened a drawer and pulled out a thin folder. Inside were the original investment papers, documents proving his majority control. But those would stay closed. For now. "I want a reservation tomorrow night," he said. "Same time, same table, but under another name." "Got it," Lisa said. "What name should I use?" Damen thought for a second. "David Wilson. Make sure they don't connect it to me." As Lisa left the office to handle it, Damen sat in silence, staring at the photo frame on his desk. It was a picture of him and his mom when he graduated college. She was in her nurse's scrubs, visibly tired, but her smile could have lit up the whole room. Back at her apartment, Eleanor sat quietly by her window. She had changed out of her black dress, now in her favorite cozy robe, sipping tea with slightly trembling hands. She wasn't angry, not exactly. She had seen worse things in her life, but what struck her tonight wasn't the rudeness. It was how casual it had been. They didn't argue with her. They didn't raise their voices. They simply looked at her. Like she didn't belong there. Like she was invisible, and that's what hurt. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted to live in a world where someone like her could walk into a restaurant, even a fancy one, and be treated like anyone else. But she also knew her son, and she knew that voice he used when he said, "Give me an hour." The next. Morning! LeBlanc Manor's sleek phone line rang. LeBlanc Manor, how may I assist you? Yes, a smooth voice replied. I'd like to make a reservation for tomorrow evening. For two. VIP table if it's available. Of course, sir. May I have your name? David Wilson, the hostess checked. Yes, Mr. Wilson. The VIP table is available. We'll see you tomorrow evening at 7. Click, Damen leaned back in his chair and smiled. But not the kind of smile you show in public. It was the smile of someone who already knew how the story would end. What LeBlanc Manor didn't realize was that the person they mistreated was more than just someone's mother. She was his mother. And soon, everything was going to change. The following evening, just before 7 p.m., a black rideshare sedan pulled up quietly in front of LeBlanc Manor. It wasn't a flashy car. It didn't draw attention. The man who stepped out wore a simple blazer, a tie that didn't quite sit right, and shoes that had clearly seen more work than luxury. His name, at least for the night, was David Wilson. He adjusted his collar, looked up at the glowing sign above the door, and walked in without hesitation. Inside, the atmosphere was just like the night before, polished and perfect. The chandeliers gave off a golden glow, the walls shimmered with old money elegance, and soft piano music floated in the air. Guests sat in clusters of quiet conversation, dressed in tailored suits and expensive jewelry. Damen Carter walked in as if he didn't belong, and that was the point. No one greeted him at the door. No one offered to take his coat. The doorman barely gave him a glance. It wasn't rude, just indifferent. He was invisible here, just as his mother had been. He walked to the hostess stand. The same blonde hostess from the night before looked up, clearly not recognizing him. Good evening, Damen said, soft-spoken. I have a reservation. Name's David Wilson. She looked at the book. This time, the name was there. Ah, yes, Mr. Wilson. We have you for 7 p.m., VIP table. She paused, then frowned slightly. I'm so sorry. It looks like that table's actually been given to another party. But we do have a nice table near the bar. Damen blinked slowly. I see, he said. But I was told the table was available when I booked. Yes, well, things change, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Would you like the bar table? Damen nodded politely. Sure, that'll be fine. She led him past gleaming tables, past patrons laughing over wine, past 2 empty window-side tables that were obviously being held for someone more important. He was seated next to the bar, close to the kitchen entrance, where the clanging of pots and footsteps made conversation nearly impossible. The seat cushion was uneven. The table wobbled slightly. It was a small detail, but it said everything, and Damen noticed everything. A young black waiter came over. His name tag read Daniel, the same waiter who had spoken up the night before. He approached cautiously, not quite sure if he was allowed to say what he wanted to. Can I get you started with some water? He asked. Damen smiled gently. Water is fine. No rush. Daniel poured the water, then leaned down slightly. I remember your mom, he said under his breath. She handled it with class. They do this kind of thing often. Damen didn't react. He just nodded. Daniel glanced around. Be careful, sir. They don't like people asking questions. Thank you, Damen said, meaning it. For the next 30 minutes, Damen sat quietly, observing. A black couple entered. Well-dressed. Well-mannered. They were seated near the back, close to the restrooms. Minutes later, 2 white men walked in, no reservation, chatting loudly. They were seated at the window with full smiles from the staff. Damon's food arrived late. Cold. Overpriced. Still, he said nothing. Then he asked Daniel a question, loud enough for a nearby server to hear. "I've been thinking about investing in restaurants," he said. "This one seems interesting. Who would I talk to about that?" Daniel hesitated. "That would be our general manager. I'll let him know you're interested." 5 minutes later, Gareth Simmons arrived, polished as always, oozing fake charm. "Mr. Wilson, I hear you're thinking about investing. I'd love to chat." He didn't recognize Damen at all. Damen played the part perfectly. Asked about margins, asked how they kept their reputation so exclusive, and Gareth told him everything. "Well," he said, leaning in slightly, "it's all about curation. Not everyone gets the same experience here." Damen raised a brow. "Curation?" "You know, filtering. Making sure our regulars feel comfortable. We don't advertise that, of course." He chuckled, as if he had just shared a clever secret. Damen sipped his water. "And how's business lately?" "Booming," Gareth said. "We even do a few creative adjustments behind the scenes. Unofficial charges for certain customers. Keeps the profits up, you understand." "I do," Damen replied calmly. Every word was being recorded. The microphone inside Damen's tie pin transmitted everything to a secure server. He wouldn't need to explain later. Gareth was doing it for him. When the conversation ended, Gareth handed Damen a business card. "Let's keep in touch. I like investors who ask smart questions." Damen nodded. As Gareth walked away, Daniel came back to the table. He didn't say much, just placed a napkin down on Damen's lap, then disappeared. Damen waited until the waiter was gone, then unfolded it under the table. Scrawled in nervous handwriting were 6 words. "He's done this before. Be careful." Damen folded the napkin and slid it into his jacket pocket. It was all clear now. This wasn't just one mistake. It was a pattern. It was a system. And Damen Carter wasn't just a son anymore. He was about to become their reckoning. Damen left LeBlanc Manor that night with his jacket buttoned, his shoulders squared, and his mind made up. Outside, the air was cooler than expected. The city lights reflected off the windshield of his waiting car, but he didn't get in immediately. He stood still on the sidewalk for a moment, staring at the restaurant's golden-lit windows. Inside, nothing had changed. People were still, eating, laughing, toasting. They had no idea what was coming, because Damen Carter hadn't just been insulted, he had been activated. Inside his pocket, he could still feel the folded napkin from Daniel. 6 words. "He's done this before. Be careful." That note said more than any corporate report ever could. Damen finally slid into the car and shut the door behind him. The interior was silent. He took out his phone and opened a secure app connected to a private cloud. The audio from his tie mic had uploaded without error. Gareth's voice came through clearly. Every self-incriminating word, every smug chuckle about filtering guests, about creative adjustments, about making sure the regulars feel comfortable. It was all there, and Damen was done being comfortable. The next morning, he arrived. At his office earlier than usual. The city was still waking up when Lisa stepped into the room, coffee in hand and worry in her eyes. "You went?" she asked without needing to. Damen nodded. "Got everything." He walked straight into it. Lisa placed the coffee on his desk and handed over a printed summary of employee complaints linked to LeBlanc Manor. "These aren't public. I pulled them from the internal hotline you set up. One name keeps showing up." "Gareth," Damen guessed. "Bingo. And you were right. It's not just rudeness, it's targeted. People of color being lost in the reservation system, seated in the worst spots, given different menu prices. There's even evidence they add random service charges depending on someone's name or how they look." Damen exhaled slowly. Anger kept neatly behind his eyes. "This isn't a culture issue," Lisa added. "This is policy." "What about financials?" Daman asked. Lisa opened a folder. "Our accounting team found discrepancies. Gareth's been skimming. Not much each time, but enough over years to add up. Most of it disappears into a vendor account tied to a shell company. Guess who owns the company?" Daman tilted his head. "Gareth?" "Technically, no. It's under a woman named Amanda Simmons, his sister. But the address matches his." Classic. Daman had seen it before. Little kingdoms inside bigger empires. Built on arrogance, hidden by paperwork. "Anything on the socialite?" he asked. Lisa tapped her screen. "Veronica Langley. Deep political ties. Her family owns 3 hotel chains. Her uncle, U.S. Senator, chair of the Urban Development Committee." Daman rubbed his chin. "That explains the confidence. It also means if we go public, they'll try to bury this." Daman stood and walked to the window. The skyline stretched before him, buildings he helped finance, blocks he'd rebuilt from the ground up. He didn't come from money. He came from struggle. He came from watching his mother work 14-hour shifts so he could get through college. That same mother had just been told, politely, that she didn't belong. "You still want to play this quietly?" Lisa asked. Daman turned. "No, we do it clean, but not quiet." Lisa smiled for the first time that morning. "Start drafting. A report," Daman said. "Full audit, pull records, employee statements, reservation logs, financials, and tell HR to contact Daniel." "Offer him a role?" Lisa asked. "Offer him protection first, then a role." Later that day, Daman made a call to Richard Albright, the name the public thought owned LeBlanc Manor. The truth was, Richard was just a name on a door. A trust fund heir who liked the idea of being a restaurateur but didn't want to work for it. "Richard," Daman said calmly once he picked up. "We need to talk." "Everything all right?" Richard asked, clearly caught off guard. "No, but it will be. My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Click." That night, back at home, Daman looked over a photo of his mother holding him as a child. Her nurse scrubs were wrinkled, her eyes were tired, but her posture was strong. Always strong. He wasn't going to let anyone shrink her ever again. Not Gareth, not Veronica, not the Langley family, not the system that let this happen. Tomorrow the reckoning would begin, but tonight he would prepare for a clean, quiet storm. The following morning at exactly 8:59 a.m., Daman Carter walked into the private conference room on the 28th floor of Carter Enterprises. His suit was perfectly cut, his expression calm, but beneath that was something far colder. It wasn't just focus, it was precision. It was purpose. Lisa was already seated, tablet in hand, files open, coffee untouched. "He's on his way," she said. Daman gave a single nod and sat at the head of the long oak table. A minute later, the door opened and in walked Richard Albright, grinning, like someone who'd just stepped off a golf course. That smile faded fast the moment he saw the paperwork spread out on the table. "Okay, what's this about?" Richard asked, adjusting his expensive cufflinks. Daman didn't look up. "Sit down, Richard," Richard blinked. "You all right, Daman? You sound different." Daman slid a folder across the table. "That's the summary of what your manager has been doing. Skimming money, discriminating against guests, manipulating reservations based on skin tone and last names." Richard scoffed, flipping it open. "What is this? A hit piece?" "Gareth's been running that place like a machine for years. Our reviews are 5 stars across the board." "From people who look like you," Lisa interrupted. Richard paused. "Excuse me? You heard her?" Daman said, finally locking eyes with him. "You were content collecting checks and playing restaurateur, while Gareth built a culture that excluded people who didn't fit his idea of belonging. And now, It's coming apart. Richard chuckled nervously. Look, if there was a misunderstanding with a guest, I'm happy to comp their meal. It was my mother, Daman said quietly. That stopped everything. The words sat in the air like lead. Richard leaned back slowly. Your mother? Yes, Daman said. She made a reservation for her birthday. Gareth pretended it didn't exist, offered her a seat near the kitchen, gave her table to someone else, then smirked while doing it. I didn't know, Richard stammered. You never said. That was the point, Daman replied. I wanted to see how your place treated people who didn't walk in with a title or a billionaire. Son. And now I have. Lisa turned the tablet toward Richard, pressing play. Gareth's voice filled the room. We filter out the wrong crowd. Keeps the regulars comfortable. Creative adjustments, nothing illegal. We just know who won't question the charges. Richard looked ill. You let a bigot run your restaurant, Daman said. And now, you get to choose what happens. Next, you can resign your remaining shares to me. Walk away quietly with your reputation barely intact. Or, you can stay. And this recording, these files, they'll go public. Today. Richard opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. This is blackmail. No, Daman said. This is accountability. A long silence followed. Then Richard, shoulders sagging, eyes down, reached for the pen beside the transfer agreement. He signed. When it was done, Lisa stood and opened another file. The buy. Press release goes out in 30 minutes, she said. It announces the change in ownership and a restructuring of LeBlanc Manor's management. You're really going to burn it all down over one insult? Richard muttered. Daman stood, straightened his cufflinks. This isn't about one insult. It's about every quiet moment someone was made to feel small and just accepted it. My mother didn't raise me to accept it. With that, he walked out of the room. By noon, the story was everywhere. LeBlanc Manor fires entire management team after racial discrimination scandal. Black CEO steps forward after mother denied service. Turns out, he owns the restaurant. Daman Carter exposes corruption, retakes control. Outside LeBlanc Manor, reporters stood in clusters. Inside, staff members were being pulled aside one by one. Some offered new contracts under fresh management. Others, like Gareth Simmons, were handed envelopes and escorted out the back door by security. Gareth protested, of course. Loudly. Called it unfair. Called it political, called Daman all kinds of things behind his back. But he walked out with no power left. Daniel watched him go with quiet satisfaction. Later that afternoon, Daniel received a phone call from Lisa. Mr. Carter wants to offer you a full-time position in operations. Same pay, better title, and security, if you need it. Daniel didn't speak at first. He was standing on the same sidewalk where Eleanor had stood just days before. The memory of her calm, dignified voice still rang in his ears. He smiled. Tell him I'm in. That evening, the restaurant was quiet, empty. The chandeliers were still glowing, but the air was different. The tables were being reset, not just for the next day's guests, but for something bigger. A new start. In a quiet back office, Daman looked over the new signage mock-ups. The name LeBlanc Manor was coming down. It would be replaced by one word, Eleanor. He smiled, not because it was over, but because it was just beginning. The next morning, Daman stood at his office window, coffee untouched, watching the city come alive. Taxis honked below. People rushed to work, heads down, living their lives. Most of them would never know what had just happened inside the walls of LeBlanc Manor. But some would. The news was spreading fast. His phone buzzed again. Another article. Another headline. Racial bias exposed in elite restaurant. CEO takes bold action. But not everyone liked bold action, especially not people who'd never been challenged. Across the city, in a gated estate lined with stone lions and political connections, Veronica Langley was already on the phone. Her voice, usually calm and poised, was now sharp with rage. Who the hell is this Damon Carter? And how did he take over our restaurant without a whisper? Her uncle, a U.S. senator known for shaking hands and breaking backroom deals, didn't have an immediate answer. But he knew one thing. Their name had made problems disappear for decades. "We'll handle him," the senator said. "We've done it before." Veronica didn't respond. She was too busy scrolling through the comments. On the article, people were naming names. Hers, the restaurant, the hypocrisy, the arrogance. It was spreading like oil across water. For the first time in a long time, someone had turned the spotlight on them, and she didn't like how that felt. Meanwhile, at Carter Enterprises, Lisa walked into Damon's office without knocking. Something she never did unless it was urgent. "We've been hit," she said flatly. Damon looked up. "Where?" "West Side Development. Our largest partner pulled out. No explanation, just gone. The site was supposed to break ground in 2 weeks." Damon blinked, absorbing the blow. "That's not all," Lisa continued. "The zoning committee for the Thompson Street project just sent a notice. They're reviewing the permit status. Which means a delay. Which means we lose momentum. Investors are already calling." Damon rubbed the bridge of his nose. It wasn't a surprise. He expected retaliation. But the speed of it, that was calculated. "They're coming hard," Lisa said. "Veronica's family has deep reach. They're hitting where it hurts. Your future projects, your backers, your credibility." Damon looked out the window again. His reflection stared back. Calm, composed. But inside, he felt it. Pressure rising like water behind glass. "I fired one man," he said. "That was it. Just one." Lisa shook her head. "You didn't just fire a man. You challenged a system. And worse, you did it publicly. They don't care about Gareth. They care that someone like you stood up without asking permission." Damon said nothing for a long time. Then finally he turned. "What about Daniel?" "He's safe. For now," Lisa said. "But he told me something interesting this morning. The staff used to call the VIP table Langley's throne. That's how much control Veronica had over that place. She'd hold meetings there, off the books, after hours, real estate deals, political donors, all quiet." Damon narrowed his eyes. "So it wasn't just a restaurant to them?" "It was a headquarters," Lisa confirmed. "A place where they operated without oversight. And I just pulled the rug out from under them." Lisa nodded. Damon walked to his desk and sat down. Slowly, "Then we don't just play defense," he said. "We go deeper." "You sure?" He looked up at her. "They think I'm just a tech guy with a clean office and a soft voice. They have no idea what I've built or what I'm capable of." Lisa didn't smile, but her posture changed. She knew that tone. It was the same one Damon had when he took on his first hostile merger. "What's the move?" she asked. "We hit back," he said. "Not with noise, with facts." Lisa opened her tablet. Already started compiling everything. "We've got testimony, reservation logs, leaked audio. But we need something bigger if we're going to take down Veronica and her uncle." "Financials?" Damon asked. "Clean, or hidden well." "Then, we watch. And we wait. Everyone slips when they're scrambling, especially people who've never had to clean up their own mess." That night, back at home, Damon received a text from an unknown number. "Watch your step, Carter. Some places aren't for people like you." He stared at the screen for a few seconds. No name, no reply. He didn't need one. Instead, he forwarded the message to Lisa and his private security team. Then, he picked up his phone and called his mother. "I'm fine," she said immediately, knowing exactly why he was calling. "And no, I'm not scared. You do what you need to do. They don't get to win just because they're louder." Daman felt his chest tighten. "I'll take care of it," he promised. "I know you will," she said gently. "But take care of yourself too." After they hung up, Daman stood at the window again. The city looked different tonight. It wasn't just buildings and lights anymore, it was a battlefield, and the war had begun. 1 week later, the doors of the newly renamed restaurant opened for the first time. Gone was the name LeBlanc Manor. Gone were the velvet ropes, the secret reservation logs, the cold stares. In their place, a new brass sign had been installed, over the arched entrance, polished until it gleamed in the sunlight. Eleanor, no surname, no pretense, just one name. The same name that had once been quietly erased from the hostess book was now etched permanently into the city. Inside, the restaurant looked familiar, but felt completely different. The chandeliers still glowed above, but the lighting was warmer now. The walls displayed art from local black and brown artists. The wine list hadn't changed, but the staff had. Every member had been retrained. And the new manager, Alexis, an experienced black woman with a soft voice and steel in her spine, made sure no guest ever had to wonder if they belonged. That night, the first reservation went to Eleanor Carter. She arrived wearing deep purple, her favorite color, and a small gold pin on her collar that said simply 62. Daman had it made for her. One number. The percentage he'd always owned of the restaurant. The share no one saw. The power no one recognized. Until now. As she walked through the doors, the room stood up. Not just staff, but guests. All of them. White, black, brown, young, old. Some had read the story. Some had simply heard whispers of what had happened here. But everyone knew they were witnessing a moment. Eleanor paused at the entrance, eyes scanning the room. "I thought I told you I didn't need a big show," she said softly to Daman, who appeared at her side in a sharp gray suit. "It's not a show," he said. "It's a correction." She gave him a look, half stern, half proud, and let him take her arm. They walked to the VIP table by the garden window, the very same table she'd been denied, only now, it was hers in every sense. As they sat, Alexis approached the table with a bottle of Eleanor's favorite wine. "We're honored to have you here, Ms. Carter," she said warmly. "You set the standard for how we treat people now." Eleanor smiled. "Then make sure you treat everyone like they matter, even when no one's watching." "We will," Alexis said. As the evening unfolded, the meal wasn't just dinner. It was something else, something unspoken, a statement. The dining room buzzed with soft conversation, clinking glasses, and the piano in the corner played something gentle and familiar. It felt like hope. Halfway through the evening, Daniel stopped by the table. He was no longer a waiter, but the new assistant general manager. He wore a navy blue jacket and the kind of pride that doesn't need to be spoken. "Ms. Carter," he said, "just wanted to say thank you again. That night, I didn't say much, but you reminded me what dignity looks like." Eleanor reached for his hand. "It's in you too. Don't forget that." Before dessert, Lisa entered the room and whispered something in Daman's ear. He nodded once, calmly, then turned to his mother. Something just came through. He said, "You'll want to see this." He handed her his phone. On the screen was a breaking news alert. Senator Langley under federal investigation. Secret real estate deals linked to restaurant scandal. Another alert followed. Whistleblower. Surfaces with decade of evidence. Langley family's private dealings exposed. The whistleblower was a former accountant named Kevin Blackwell. He had once worked at the same restaurant, fired, silenced, forgotten. Until now. Eleanor set the phone down slowly. "You knew this would happen? I hoped," Daman said. "We gave people the courage to speak. The rest, they did themselves." Across the city, Veronica Langley was watching the same headlines from a darkened room in her family's estate. Her phone buzzed, but she didn't answer. Her uncle had already called. Their lawyers had already withdrawn. The people they used to own, judges, councilmen, donors, were now pretending they'd never met her. The empire had cracks, and those cracks were widening. Back at Eleanor, as dessert arrived, Daman looked across the table at his mother. She had taken a single bite and already declared it too fancy, but her smile didn't fade. "This place won't be perfect," he said quietly. "Mistakes will still happen. People might still carry old habits." "I know," she said. "But now the right people are watching," he added. She nodded. "And the wrong ones aren't in charge." Outside, a small group of people gathered. At the entrance, not to protest, but to take photos. One young woman stood holding a printout of an online review. It was from 5 years ago, written by someone who had visited the old restaurant and been told they didn't meet the dress code. Despite wearing the exact same brand as other guests, the review ended with 5 words: "I just wanted to belong." Now she stood outside Eleanor and walked in. No one stopped her. No one looked her up and down. She was greeted with a smile, just like anyone else. As the night came to a close, Daman and his mother stepped outside. The breeze was soft. The sign above the door caught the streetlight just right. "You know," Eleanor said, "I never needed that table." "I know," Daman replied, "but I needed the world to know you deserved it." She smiled, slipping her arm through his. "You've done something good here, son. Not just for me, for a lot of people." He nodded. "And it's just the beginning. Because this wasn't about one dinner, one insult, one name left off a reservation list. This was about every person who had ever been made to feel small, to feel invisible, to feel like they didn't matter. And now, their stories had a seat at the table, right where they always should have been."